There is a secret army of agents who travel the world carrying briefcases filled with financial spreadsheets instead of guns. They do not work for the CIA or the KGB, but they work for major engineering firms and international banks. Their job is to walk into the office of a president in a developing nation and offer him a deal that sounds too good to be true. They offer billions of dollars in loans to build massive infrastructure projects like dams, highways, and power plants. But the hidden logic of this deal is that the country is never supposed to pay the money back. These men are known as economic hitmen, and they are the foot soldiers of the modern banking empire. Welcome back to Hidden Logic, where today we are exposing how the banking cartel conquers nations without firing a single bullet. To understand this system, we must look at the confessions of a man named John Perkins, who was an economic hitman for 10 years. Perkins was recruited by the National Security Agency not to be a spy but to be an economist at a private consulting firm. His first assignment was in Indonesia, a country that was critical to the West during the Cold War against communism. His job was to generate economic forecasts that were completely fake and scientifically impossible to achieve. He would predict that a new electrical grid would create massive economic growth for the region, justifying a massive loan. Based on these fake numbers, the World Bank and the IMF would approve the billions of dollars needed for the project. But here is the catch that most people do not understand about international aid and development loans. The money never actually goes to the country itself. It is transferred directly from the World Bank in Washington to U.S. engineering corporations like Bechtel or Halliburton. These companies build the projects using their own workers and materials, while the poor country is left holding the massive debt. The local dictator gets rich from bribes, the American corporations get rich from the contracts, and the people get the bill. A few years later, the impossible economic growth does not happen and the country realizes it cannot pay the interest on the loan. This is the moment the trap snaps shut and the economic hitmen return to the president's office. But this time they are not offering money, they are demanding their pound of flesh in exchange for debt forgiveness. They demand control over the country's oil reserves, they demand the privatization of their water systems, and they demand UN votes. This is not aid, this is a modern form of colonialism where debt is the weapon and the bank is the conqueror. However, sometimes there are leaders who refuse to be bought, leaders who actually care about their own people. This brings us to the dark reality of the Jackals, who are the CIA assassins sent in when the economic hitmen fail. We have two terrifying examples of this from history involving the leaders of Panama and Ecuador in the 1980s. Jaime Roldos, the president of Ecuador, ran on a platform of ensuring that Ecuador's oil wealth benefited the poor. He wanted to reorganize the hydrocarbon sector and threatened to expel the American oil companies if they did not play fair. The economic hitmen were sent in to bribe him and threaten him, but Roldos refused to back down. Then there was Omar Torrijos, the charismatic leader of Panama, who wanted to take back control of the Panama Canal. Torrijos was negotiating with the Japanese to build a new canal, which would have destroyed the American monopoly on global trade. Both men refused the deals offered by the economic hitmen and stood up for the sovereignty of their nations. And the result? Both men die in mysterious plane crash just 2 months apart in the year 1981. Perkins claims that these were not accidents, but assassinations designed to send a message to every other leader in the world. The message was simple: play the game and get rich, or refuse the game and die in a fiery crash. I want to hit the pause button right here because these are serious allegations about how our world is run, and I need your opinion. Do you believe that these plane crashes were just tragic accidents and coincidences, as the official reports claim? Or do you believe that powerful banking interests are willing to assassinate world leaders to protect their profits? Go to the comment section right now and type the word accident if you believe the official story. Or type the word assassination if you think Roldos and Torrijos were silenced by the Jackals. After the death of these leaders, the new presidents of Ecuador and Panama immediately signed the deals that the dead men had refused. Ecuador sank into massive debt and was forced to sell its oil to foreign companies for pennies on the dollar. But the economic hitman did not just operate in small countries, it played a major role in the biggest game of all, Saudi Arabia. In the 1970s, after the oil crisis, the US economy was collapsing and the dollar was in danger. Perkins and his team were sent to Saudi Arabia with a mission to recycle the massive oil wealth back into the United States. They convinced the House of Saud to invest their billions into US Treasury bonds, effectively propping up the American economy. In exchange, the US promised to modernize Saudi Arabia and provide absolute military protection to the royal family. This deal, which created the modern petrodollar system, was the greatest success of the economic hitman. It proved that finance could be used to secure an empire more effectively than any army ever could. But what happens when this system is applied to the absolute basics of life, like water? Let us look at the case of Bolivia in the late 1990s, where the World Bank demanded privatization. Under pressure from the bank, Bolivia sold the water system of its third-largest city to a consortium led by Bechtel. The company immediately raised water rates by 200%, making it impossible for the poor to afford clean water. They even made it illegal for people to collect rainwater in buckets, claiming that it infringed on their intellectual property rights. This absurdity led to the Cochabamba Water War, where ordinary people fought the police in the streets to reclaim their right to live. This is the ultimate endgame of the banking cartel, to turn every aspect of human life into a commodity that can be traded. And do not think for a second that this system is only used against the developing world. The economic hitmen are now coming home to the West, applying the same logic to cities in Europe and America. Look at what happened in Greece during the financial crisis, where the troika of banks forced the country to sell its airports and ports. Look at Detroit, where the city went bankrupt and the banks demanded the privatization of public assets. The objective is always the same: to transfer public wealth into private hands using debt as the lever. The banking cartel does not care about national borders or flags, they only care about the flow of interest payments. They have created a global corporatocracy, where corporations, banks, and governments are merged into one entity. But this system requires a safe place to hide the stolen loot and the bribe money paid to the corrupt leaders. The economic hitmen need a vault that is impenetrable to the law and invisible to the public eye. They need a place where the blood money of the Congo and the stolen tax dollars of Greece can be washed clean. This brings us to the next layer of the hidden logic, which is the secret banking system of Switzerland. There is a tower in the city of Basel that acts as the central nervous system for this entire global operation. In our next video, we will travel to the Tower of Basel and expose the bank that rules all other banks. We will see where the dictators hide their money and how the cartel launders the proceeds of this global crime. You will learn about the Bank for International Settlements, the most powerful and secretive financial institution on earth. It is a bank that has no country, that pays no taxes, and whose employees have diplomatic immunity from all laws. Subscribe now and hit the bell, because you cannot afford to be naive about who is really pulling the strings of the economy. See you in the next analysis, where we unlock the vaults of the Swiss bankers and reveal the ultimate safe house.